Our mind is a tool through which we can solve the challenges of our lives. By having accurate information about a problem, we can make the right decision to solve it. And if our minds are so amazing, so why is it that some of us humans can't correct some of our wrong behaviors? And why does the number of these mistakes even increase during decision-making times? So this question creates in our minds, why is it really so difficult to make a new decision to change and improve the situations of life? In addition to the formation of certain bad habits in the mind and the creation of neural pathways, and the difficulty of changing a bad habit. Additionally, there are other issues within the human thought system that lead to more errors and mistakes during decision-making times. These problems are cognitive biases, which we want to thoroughly examine in this video. And for this reason, we'll also introduce several important cognitive biases. In fact, we humans perceive the world through our own cognitive system. And based on this understanding and perception that we gain about the world and its phenomena, we interact with the world around us and make necessary decisions. We know that completing any task involves several stages, and if we prioritize and put these stages together, a pattern is formed. And when we repeatedly iterate this pattern, our mind understands it well, so we can skillfully repeat the pattern until the task is completed with high quality and speed. So for faster completion of any task, we need a specific pattern. A pattern that we can follow to accomplish a task in a timely manner and with appropriate quality. For this reason, our thought system creates patterns based on our needs, which direct our decision-making and behavior. These mental patterns are utilized during times such as learning and decision-making. One reason our thought system creates these patterns is because the world is a complex place, and to understand it, we need a lot of information. And we know that our memory and time are limited. Therefore, our thought system must, based on this, retain some of the most important information and discard the rest for quicker understanding and decision-making in a timely manner. So we need shortcuts to understand many things. And for this, we need to filter some information so that we can make necessary decisions and act very quickly. Actually, this way of mental functioning is what has enabled us to solve many of our problems. But we must acknowledge that this has also led to the creation of cognitive biases. These cognitive biases are the bugs in our thought system. The problem starts when some of the patterns we have in our minds are wrong. So if we base our decisions on these patterns, the likelihood of making mistakes in our decision-making is very high. Now, let's become familiar with a cognitive bias called sunk cost fallacy, which can change our decision-making criteria during decision-making and lead us to make wrong decisions. For example, we see people who have invested a lot of resources to do a task, but after a long period of time, their efforts haven't yielded the desired result. Now, these individuals should stop this task and move on to something that yields desirable results. So these individuals should make a new decision and abandon the current futile task, opting for a new one. But here, many individuals cannot forget the costs they have incurred for a task. As a result, to avoid losing those costs, they persist in continuing the fruitless task. And this causes them to incur further losses. In fact, here we fall into the cognitive bias known as the sunk cost fallacy. It means we cannot forget the costs we have incurred for a fruitless task. Let's examine what happened here. Here, the mind fell into error, changing the criterion for making a correct decision. Because the criterion for making a correct decision is based on the value it generates in the future. However, if a decision doesn't offer suitable value for the future, we should refrain from going through with it. But here, our minds focus on the costs incurred in the past for a certain task. And this leads us to make a wrong decision in order not to waste the costs incurred in the past for performing a task. And here, the wrong decision is to continue a fruitless task. Another aspect regarding cognitive biases is that sometimes two or more cognitive biases can interact, reinforcing an even stronger incorrect pattern. For example, there's a cognitive bias called the IKEA effect. According to this cognitive bias, if individuals have a role in creating something, they tend to attach greater value to it. For example, if you build a closet yourself, you'll value it more than a ready-made one you purchase from the market. Now, if cognitive bias of sunk cost fallacy combines with the IKEA effect, we might assign greater value to a fruitless task in which we've been involved. And this causes us to be unable to abandon the fruitless task for which we've incurred significant costs. Cognitive biases can even exacerbate some illnesses and flawed thought patterns. In today's world, professional advertising and rising expectations have led many of us humans to develop perfectionism. One of the cognitive biases directly associated with this condition is the cognitive bias of all or nothing. According to this cognitive bias, individuals tend to see events and people in black or white. From the perspective of these individuals, someone who isn't good is bad. And if we consider a chart for all aspects of life that exist for these individuals, such as completing a task, starting or continuing a relationship, or anything else, it must either be 100% perfect or it will never be done. And usually, nothing is placed in the middle of the chart. This extends to the point where individuals will encounter numerous psychological issues and are forced to endure significant pressure in their lives. Usually, such individuals believe that all conditions must be met in order to carry out their tasks. A question arises here regarding cognitive biases. Can we ever completely eliminate cognitive biases? No, because these cognitive biases are inherent consequences of our cognitive system. Indeed, they exist throughout human life. How can we control cognitive biases? This question is better. So far, psychologists have identified over 100 cognitive biases, and there are probably many more that remain unknown. However, there are several factors that if we consider them during decision-making, we can very likely protect ourselves from many of these cognitive biases. 1. Awareness. The first step in combating cognitive biases is awareness of their existence. By recognizing and understanding these biases, we can better prevent them. If we look at the list of cognitive biases, we can see clear examples of them in our personal lives, indicating that by recognizing cognitive biases, we can avoid many cognitive biases. 2. Reflection and deep thinking. Before making important decisions, it's better to spend enough time contemplating and reflecting on the matter. This helps prevent hasty and irrational decisions. 3. Seeking advice from others. Sometimes, the opinions of others can help us avoid cognitive biases. Consulting with others and listening to different perspectives can illuminate our blind spots. 4. Utilizing effective decision-making techniques. Learning and using effective decision-making techniques such as SWOT analysis, understanding rewards and costs, and evaluating trade-offs can help us make better decisions. 5. Embracing the possibility of error. Instead of striving for flawless decision-making, it's better to be aware of the possibility of errors in our decisions and take necessary actions to improve them and reduce the likelihood of errors. Let's review the concepts we learned in this video in a mind map together. Cognitive biases are erroneous thinking patterns in the human mind, and essentially, they are bugs in our thinking system. In cognitive bias, the sunk cost fallacy leads us to base our decisions on the cost we've incurred for a task. However, the proper criterion for decision-making is based on the future value of that decision. In cognitive bias, the IKEA effect leads us to place greater value on something we've contributed to creating. And this phenomenon can lead us to make erroneous decisions. In cognitive bias, all or nothing, individuals believe they must either perform a task with utmost perfection or not start it at all. As a result, we understand that cognitive biases are always with us. We just need to be careful during decision-making times not to fall into the trap of cognitive biases. Paying attention to this issue helps us make more accurate decisions. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Goodbye.